Welcome. Grid, live, wrap up, World Rally Championship. It's all going to come down to the last race in Saudi Arabia, but some big news involving a former past champion. MotoGP championship's been wrapped up, but it looks like fourth place might be where Pecco ends up, considering he's the defending champion. And Formula One, Sao Paulo Grand Prix at Interlagos, big moment for Lando Norris. Joe Samaniego with me, Kobe Lambeth from Grid Tonight. Short, quiet weekend. We're getting down to it after this weekend. 4 more race weekends to go for us here and the Grid Rankin. A big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark, Robert, David, and Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. Link in the video description to go to our Patreon page where you can invest in the Grid Network, get your name on the leaderboard. Also, buy me a coffee if you're watching us on YouTube. YouTube Super Chat will thank you on the air. Put your name on the leaderboard, and Grid Network TV across social media, including gridnetworktv.com, where you could relive all the moments from the 2025 NASCAR Cup Series season with Matthew Bros articles from each and every week. Kobe, this championship is going to come down to the next few weeks, but I feel like, as we said before, for various championships over the years, Lando Norris, he might be able to put one hand on the championship after next race weekend because the championship picture has shifted, in my opinion, in his favor. He comes to Brazil with a 1-point lead. From that, he gets the pole, he wins the sprint, he goes on, takes the Grand Prix, a 24-point lead over Oscar Piastri with 3 Grand Prix remaining, and a sprint race. That means overall, when it comes to the championship picture, you have 85 points on the line. Max Verstappen from the pit lane, he came out to finish 3rd place. Many scratching their heads about that final pit stop for soft tires. He is 49 points behind the leader. With 85 points on the line, not a lot of time for him. Really, the only way Lando Norris can lose the lead in Las Vegas next race weekend if he scores no points and Oscar Piastri goes out there, gets the win. Kobe, there are no more bonus points for the fastest lap, so it would be a 1-point lead if Oscar Piastri wins in Las Vegas and Lando Norris crashes out. Oscar Piastri has won in Vegas. Lando Norris has crashed out in Las Vegas. Was today a big win, a big relief, weight lifted off the shoulders of Lando Norris in claiming his first Formula One Drivers' Championship?
Yeah, I think Lando certainly has all the momentum as we head to these final few races of the season. And it's really crazy. I know we've talked about this on their show for the last several months, but they're in the first half of the season, 2/3 of the season. It seemed like Oscar Piastri's at the upper hand, but I'm not sure what's going on with Oscar in this last third of the season because it seemed like he's just completely collapsing and falling apart. And the same Oscar Piastri we saw at the start of the year is not the same one right now because Lando Norris is capitalized on absolutely everything. And Oscar Piastri, I hate to say it, but he's really leaving a lot out on the racetrack where where there's a lot more potential for him to get more from each race weekend, and he's just not getting it at all. So I just truly don't understand what the issue is with Oscar. But if you're Lando right now, you have to feel very excited heading into the final few race weekends. You got Las Vegas obviously coming up. Really excited about that one, the Qatar Grand Prix, and then the season ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So not much time left for Oscar, to try to get up there with Lando, because all Lando has to do is continue doing what he's doing right now, remain consistent, finishing on the podium, and then he can just easily take Oscar for this championship. But I'm sure, if this ends in a Lando Norris World Championship, Oscar Piastri will be kicking himself because you really feel like for much of the season that this was his championships to lose, and it really feels like that he's about to lose it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like the way he's been running, it feels like it is slipping out of his grasp. Overall, Lando Norris is really stepping up, win podiums, poles, doing what he needs to do. And the team, I felt today, it showed that Lando Norris is just a step ahead of Oscar Piastri, because with Oscar Piastri, He could have been in contention for second place, maybe put some pressure on Lando Norris. But of course, that's just a maybe. We'll never know because one of the big defining moments, and could really be the defining moment of this championship picture for Oscar Piastri, was on the restart following Gabriel Borratello's first lap crash. You had three wide entering turn one. Piastri on the inside, locks up, makes contact with Kimi Antonelli in the middle. He gets a little loose, slides into Charles Leclerc, takes Charles Leclerc out of the race. A 10-second penalty was handed down to Oscar Piastri for the contact. He still came back to finish, had to settle for fifth place, just could not get around George Russell towards the end. Overall, for Oscar Piastri, when it comes down to this race and the penalty, he won at Vegas. He now enters Vegas 24 points behind. Is Oscar Piastri in a must-win situation?
Yeah, I feel like he's really in a must-win situation at this point because given his decline in performance these last few Grand Prix races, he's going to have to really step up his game and beat Oscar Piastri. We saw during the first half of the season when he was clearly the top driver at McLaren, and then Lando was just playing catch-up. Now it seems like the roles are reversed. With Lando's now the lead guy, and then Oscar has become the number two, just trying to search for something down the stretch. I mean, it's not over by any means. Like you could have Lando Norris, crash out of the race in Las Vegas and Oscar Piastri win the race, and then all of a sudden, I think he'd go into the penultimate round of the championship in Qatar, I believe, maybe 1 point behind or so. So so the championship would really close up at that point. But Oscar, he cannot afford to have Lando go out there, get maximum points, and have something go wrong. But there's just gonna be a lot of pressure on the driver, the number 81 McLaren, because there's just so much, that he needs to go right at this point. And the possibility of something going wrong is obviously, can be quite high, especially, on those tricky streets of Las Vegas. It's quite a tricky little circuit, really fast. If you hit the wall there, it's gonna be quite an impact. So Oscar really needs to be perfect to close out the year if he wants to have any chance of catching his teammate in the championship.
I gotta agree with you, Kobe. I feel must-win situation for Oscar Piastri at Las Vegas. He knows how to win there, so he shouldn't put too much pressure on himself. If he could go out there, get a fast lap in qualifying, take the pole, that is a great step. Even if Lando Norris is second place on the grid and Oscar's first, I think Oscar Piastri, if he has just a good start, launch of the race, starts to pull away, he could feel like he has control of the situation and just do what he needs to do. I mean, with the way the point system's set up, at 24 points, he's not going to erase that at all. Even if Lando Norris finishes 10th place, then they'll be tied. He needs Lando Norris to crash out. But still, after Las Vegas, 2 more races, plus a sprint race. A lot of time, the last thing Oscar Piastri needs to do, puts himself in a situation where he makes a mistake, crashes out, score no points, and then just lose further ground to Lando Norris. I think that would be a devastating blow to any championship hopes, and especially when you have a driver like Max Verstappen right there behind. Max, I think, has to be one of the favorites for Las Vegas as well. You have Max Verstappen right now, third place, 49 points behind Lando Norris. As I mentioned, there are 85 points remaining this year. So it may seem a bit deceiving. Seems like, okay, a little bit more, half you could get there, but that will run out quickly the way this point structure is laid out with 25 points, then 18 and 15. Best case scenario for Max Verstappen, 2 wins, double DNFs. That will give him the lead. But we have 3 races. That scenario, Kobe, I feel is not likely to occur 2 consecutive race weekends. Because there is the potential, even if Max Verstappen wins all 3 Grand Prix race weekends and even the sprint, he could still come up short in the championship depending on where Lando and Oscar are. Overall, the stop for the soft tires, a lot of people were scratching their heads about. This will be examined closely by many folks, including potentially Red Bull. Do you believe he could have won the race had he stayed out with those medium tires?
Honestly, I think he very well could have potentially, won this race, but I guess, Red Bull, just wanted to play it safe. I know when we were watching, this as a team, I know some members of our team, they were confused as to why Max, coming to the pits because we thought he'd be able to make it to the end on this strategy. It seemed like, the perfect strategy, but I do understand, Red Bull wanting to, play it safe here. And I said, but it would have been interesting to see, what could have happened, if he's stuck with the strategy that we thought they were going to take instead of the one that they took. And sometimes when you're in a situation like Max Verstappen, when you're trying to claw your way back into this championship fight this late in the game, sometimes you need to be very aggressive with your strategy calls, and take risks because you never know, risk might pay off or it may not if they had been more aggressive here instead of instead of switching instead of with the tire situation. I would think Max could have potentially surprised some people, but even though he didn't win the race, what a drive, I believe, for the second consecutive year in a row in Brazil, coming from deep on the grid, all the way up, to finish on the podium there in third.
Third place finish. What a drive. Pit road. Get up. Had an early puncture too. So again, had to work his way towards the front. Overall, that team just seems to be much better placed now since the change in team principle. And what could have been if he had gotten a good qualifying lap, I think would have been a much different story about the way the race had played out. I encourage everyone in the chat room to participate. Love to read your chat. We have Ben Schneider. As much as I'm still team anyone but Max for this title, this could have been a 17-point swing if he tried to make those medium last to the end. He said himself they had nothing to lose. Might as well go all in and stay out and try to win the race. I have to agree with you, Kobe, and also Ben and encourage everyone in the chat room to share your opinions. We've seen other drivers make the medium tires work that long. One of those drivers, Liam Lawson, made it work. Of course, different equipment, but I have a sense he could have made those tires work. And especially, we're talking, he cannot really point his way to the championship. If he was to finish first, get the win, that's what he needed. If he had stayed out and Lando got around him, okay, maybe second. I think it would be harder for Kimi Antonelli to get around Max Verstappen compared to Max Verstappen towards the end of those soft tires at the run, trying to get around Kimi. Third place, I just don't know. So I think it'll be something a lot of people will be potentially looking at as this was a missed opportunity for Max Verstappen. Try to go out there, present himself to get a championship. It can still be done, as I said, but he's going to need some help, particularly in the form of McLaren having mistakes. For George Russell, he looked like he was going to get a podium, but of course, with Max Verstappen's brilliant drive with those soft tires, he took the final podium position. George Russell is now eliminated from the Drivers' Championship standings. I really don't believe anybody was looking at George Russell being a championship contender this year. But still, good on that team to put himself in a situation where we were coming down to the last 5 races and he was still in the championship hunt. You have a situation where Mercedes is once again not going to claim a Constructors' Championship, and you have no drivers claiming any championship. But they're coming off wins for George Russell. Kimi Antonelli seems to be back, second place finish. Really, that race could have been derailed after the contact with Oscar Piastri. I thought this is where his race was going to come undone. He seems to just gather it up, work his way towards the front, and just stay up front. We know the two of them are returning next year. And those two seem to be working pretty well together. The team seems to be vibing together. Compared to McLaren, where it's Oscar versus Lando, the papaya rule mess. Ferrari, being Ferrari, a double DNF today. It just seems they are not gelling well with that car. Red Bull, they're just a one-man team with Max Verstappen, Yuki Tsunoda. Poor race effort today. Just nothing to show for him. Considering next year we have rule regulations start changing the sport. Does Mercedes have a good chance with the two drivers working well together to really be a contender next year for drivers and potentially constructors?
Yeah, it's just really gonna depend, whether Mercedes can, hit it off right with the new regulations starting in 2026. But it seemed like things are going as well as they possibly could for Mercedes right now. And also, want to give a shout to Kimi Antonelli. It's been quite a rough rookie year for him. I know started off great in Australia in the early part of the season, but since then, once we got to the European part of the season and on into the summer, Kimi's been struggling to keep up with his teammates George Russell. And looking at Kimi's performance, not just today, but all weekend long, this is the first time all season that Kimi Antonelli has flat out outperformed his more experienced teammate in George Russell. And that's to give him a huge boost of confidence, because it's truly been a struggle for Kimi this year. And I know a lot of us, were concerned that maybe Mercedes is rushing him up too soon. And then you hear, Toto in the media before they announced his contract extension for both him and George. He was saying that Kimi's gonna have to perform and all of that. And then I came on this show and said that, Toto, I don't know why you're complaining about Kimi's lack of performance, but because this is entirely on you for rushing him up through the ladder system. He did his junior categories, of course, in Europe, and then he skipped F3, went straight to F2. He didn't really set the world on fire in Formula 2, and then you put him straight into an F1 seat and then expect him to go out there and match George Russell right away. But, given all of the growing pains and lessons that Kimi's learned throughout the year, I think today just shows you how much he has grown as a Formula One driver from his very first Grand Prix race in Melbourne till now in Brazil, as we're heading on towards the end of the season. So I really think Mercedes have to be proud with Kimi Antonelli's progress this year. And if this is a sign of things to come, maybe Kimi Antonelli at some point, he'll become the number one driver at Mercedes, and George Russell might get bumped down to number two, because what we saw today from Kimi Antonelli is exactly what people, said that he was capable of, and exactly why Mercedes wanted to get him into an F1 car sooner rather than later. But all in all, I think they have a good thing going right now for them with both of these drivers working together. But if Kimi starts performing like he did today, outperforming George on a more regular basis, might see a little bit of, hard feelings between the teammates, especially, when roles are reversed. Because right now, George is still that number one driver. One good race weekend from Kimi, doesn't excuse, all of his other performances throughout the season. But if this becomes more the regular, and, George is on the back foot, George Russell might be, really frustrated with this team.
And that's the thing you brought up. If they come out strong next year, and if Kimi particularly comes out getting the race wins, outperforming George Russell, that could quickly change the dynamics of George Russell feeling like, hey, I'm the lead driver. I'm going to do what I can to help Kimi, to, okay, he's outperforming me. My future's up in the air. I need to step up. I think the guidance of Toto Wolff here won't have a repeat of Papaya rules, but that could be a unique circumstance next year if Kimi really does step it up. One comment from Ben regarding to Lando Norris and Max Verstappen: instead of gaining 7 points on Lando, he dropped 10. Still incredible dash control given he started from the pits, but overall 49 points back. Anyone else would be toast, and I think that's a good point. Max Verstappen is really the only driver we could say, regardless of where they start, he could still end up on the podium. He was leading on 1 point, so it looked like he had something going, and a safety car could have changed the entire picture. One picture we're following along with the championship, and I think a lot of viewers should be starting to follow this, is an exciting battle we have. 3 races remaining, plus a sprint. 9th place in the Drivers' Championship. Nico Hülkenberg and Isaac Hadjar are tied for that position right now. 43 points each driver. 3 points behind them, Oliver Berman and Fernando Alonso is tied at 40 points each. 4 drivers, 2 spots in the top 10. Nico Hülkenberg, that podium he got earlier this year, plus some good races, getting points. Isaac Hadjar, also a podium finish, having good races, considering where he started the year, crashed out before he even started his first F1 race for Racing Bulls. What a recovery. Fernando Alonso, a big time veteran, trying to get the most out of what has to be a disappointing season for Aston Martin. And Oliver Berman, getting points, nearly getting that podium in Mexico City. What an effort by this team, the Haas team, to put themselves in this situation and really outperforming his teammate Esteban Ocon. Who do you believe has the best chance of finishing the top 10 out of the 4 drivers, Kobe?
I think definitely all the momentum is on Ollie Bearman's side right now because I think if you take away like what the cars are capable of and all that, I think Oliver Bearman is he's one of the hottest drivers in F1 right now, given how he's performing. We all know the Haas car is only capable of doing so much, but he is doing a fantastic job and also he's outperforming his teammate Esteban Ocon by a lot because Oliver Bearman he's scored points in the last 4 races, a pair of 9th place finishes at Singapore and Coda. He got a 4th place at Mexico City. We thought he was going to get Haas onto the podium, but unfortunately, it just didn't work out in the end. Fantastic race in Mexico and another fantastic race in Interlagos today. So I certainly think all of the momentum has to be on Oliver Bearman's side at this point. And if he can, get up into the top 10 in points, that would be huge for him. I think it's he has a high possibility of having this happen because he's with those 4 consecutive points finishes, and then Isaac Hadjar, he's in those last 4 races, he's only finished in the points once, and then Nico Hulkenberg, he's finished in the points twice, and then Alex Albon, actually not Albon. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing there on the points graphic, but the point is, I think Oliver Bearman has a really good chance of getting into the top 10, and if he continues to perform like this, we know there's been rumblings about the future of the Ferrari F1 driver lineup. I know there have been rumors that Lewis Hamilton might be seeking an exit clause, to leave, at some point, whether it's before next season or at the end of next season. And Lewis strongly dismissed those rumors out there that he would be looking for an exit clause. And we have to remember Oliver Bearman, he was a Ferrari development driver. That's the reason he was able to get into the Haas F1 seat, because Ferrari wanted one of their drivers to get into F1. And if Bearman continues to impress in the Haas, and if, let's say, Lewis Hamilton decides he wants out of Ferrari since it hasn't been going well, or if Charles Leclerc just gets frustrated with the way things are at Ferrari and wants a change of scenery and there's an open seat, I could see Ferrari looking at Bearman to potentially take one of those seats if they open up in the future, because he's just been remarkable within the last few Formula One Grand Prix races.
Oliver Bearman, I feel, has to be one of the drivers that could claim a top 10 position. I feel he has the talent. He has now got to a level where he has the confidence in getting the job done. The question is, can the team continue to deliver just performing good cars? Because he has a big battle ahead of himself. Fernando Alonso, very experienced driver, but the big thing is that Aston Martin car is not where it is to be. In fact, I think Lance Stroll, his lack of performance, I feel that has really set the team back when what they were looking at last year. Now this year, it's Fernando Alonso really carrying that team. And if he can't carry that team, we've seen races where they don't get any points. Isaac Hadjar, I think that's the other driver I could see finishing in the top 10. I could see him in 9th, potentially Bearman in 10th place. Of course, they're mid-pack, so you're fighting for a position where there's 1, 2, 4, 5 points on the line. But if somehow one of them gets a surprise podium, that would just right away give them a huge advantage. 15 points or 18 points, that will just really set them apart. So it's going to come down to who can bring the best car. I love Bearman. Chances of getting that done. Isaac Hadjar, I think, are the 2 best that have that right now. Hulkenberg has the experience. He has really made that Sauber car work very well. I just do not see him being able to carry that car to a 10th place finish. I think it's going to be struggling in Las Vegas. Over Qatar, I don't see that car doing great. That's where I think the Racing Bulls have a really good shot. And then Abu Dhabi, That's where I think you're going to see really the competition close in. I think Fernando Alonso could do it. But when you look at Vegas, I think the Haas and the Racing Bulls are looking strong for that round. I think those are my reasons why I'm seeing Oliver Berman and Isaac Hadjar being the two in the top 10. Of course, no F1 next race weekend, but next race weekend, Kobe, the last race of the year for MotoGP.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. MotoGP season coming to an end quickly, and today was Marco Bezzecchi earning another win in his Factory Apulia at Portimao in Portugal. And with this win and Pecco Bagnaya's DNL, Bezzecchi will likely claim third in the MotoGP World Rider standings. He needs to finish in the points in both races next weekend, to solidify that. And Pedro Acosta, he could take fourth away from Bagnaia as he is only 3 points ahead. So, Joe, how does Pecco Bagnaia approach next race weekend? Does he get aggressive or defensive? Because it's been really weird looking at Pecco Bagnaia this year, because you never know what version of Pecco Bagnaia you're gonna get. Are you gonna get the guy who's won all those World Riders Championship, or are you gonna get someone who he's just there?
That's why I'm really curious. Which Pecco Bagnaia are we gonna get next race weekend at Valencia? Because it's hit or miss. And such an extreme DNF. I mean, another DNF. This is getting to the point where we're talking about the Pecco Bagnaia that was racing against Fabio Quartararo for a championship what feels like many years ago. Before he got that first Riders' Championship, it was him crashing out that gave Fabio Quartararo his first championship. So far, his only championship last for Yamaha. This year, even without Marc Marquez on the track, and we know there's like dynamic of your biggest competitor is your teammate. He is still having these issues. He still does not seem to have the confidence, or just does not like this bike. The competition is closing in. I mean, Aprilia is coming on strong. Overall, qualifying and practice is going to be very key on seeing how he does. If he's up towards the front, he should feel pretty good about his chances of maintaining his position in this championship. And I can't believe I'm saying it, a fourth place, because I think at the end of the day, as long as Marco Bezzecchi scores points, especially that sprint race, he could have pretty much all of third place wrapped up. Pedro Acosta, the KTM, another podium. That KTM team seems to be finding something, because they had a double top 10 finish with Brad Binder scoring points as well. They could be very fast this last race weekend. I'm curious what's going to happen in 2026 with their bike development. But Pedro Acosta, really, he should have been a rider that has gotten a win. It's just one of those deals. KTM just did not have the bike for most of the season, but now they're starting to show potential. If Pedro Acosta outqualifies Pecco Bagnaia, I think this could mess up Pecco Bagnaia significantly in his approach to the race, because now he's on pressure to go out there and get ahead of a rider who's only in his second full season, first full season with a factory team, and really doing this against a two-time world champion in Pecco Bagnaia. What could have been if Pecco had gotten that third championship last year if he just had more consistency? He had the race wins, didn't get the championship. First rider in history to get more than 10 wins, but not the Riders' Championship. Gets paired up with Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez, another level, just winning round after round. Wraps up the championship early, crashes out. This should be Pecco Bagnaia's time to shine. But it's not. Instead, I'm very concerned if he loses fourth place in the championship and he enters next year and he starts off weak, people are going to be looking at different riders. They might be looking at Alex Marquez, his teammate. I mean, the Gresini riders, both of them have wins this year. Who knows what's going to happen with Jorge Martin? Would the factory team say, hey, we forgive you, come back, replace Pecco because we don't have faith in him? This could be a significant change up in 2026 if Pecco Bagnaia still is looking weak after the first couple of rounds, and especially if he loses to Pedro Acosta in the standings this year.
Yeah, I just don't understand what the issue's been with Peko Bagnaia this year. But I think the best thing that he has going for him is that the season is about to come to an end because he can put this season, in the trash and completely forget about it because it's not been a great year at all. And maybe the bike they have for next year will be a lot better for him, and he can go out there, and beat a Peko Bagnaia, that we know he can be because it's just been really crazy seeing how far he's fallen off this season compared to last year, and hopefully in 2026 he can get back on form, and be a lot closer to Marquez in performance, who is still recovering, from the surgery on his right shoulder blade as he continues to heal into the new year. And next, let's talk about World Rally Championship, and as that drivers' championship is going to come down to the final round in Saudi Arabia. Sebastian Ogier won Rally Japan. He is now only 3 points behind Elfyn Evans. Kali Rovanpera 24 points behind, and he's really in a must-win situation. And others, have had bad luck. I've been following, Rally Japan throughout the weekend. Since for us, here on the East Coast, it's kind of been happening late at night, over here for us. So it's, been a lot easier to watch the World Rally Championship races, which, usually happen, very early in the morning and overnight while we're sleeping. And Kali Rovanpera, I saw, he had quite a rough weekend, in Japan. And if you want to try to win the championship, that's not what you need at all. So he's really going to need them to, he's really going to need to win Rally Saudi Arabia in his final scheduled rally as a full-time competitor in this series, and hope that Ogier and Evans run into trouble. So Joe, here's what I want to ask you: who do you like entering Saudi Arabia for this year's World Rally Championship? And another thing is, we know Kali Rovanpera is going to be racing in Japan in Super Formula next year. He recently tested an old Formula 2 car, to try to get to the speed with open wheel racing. So the second part of the question I want to ask you, alongside who do you see as favorite championship, do you think preparing for his next career move is distracting him from what he's doing right now in the World Rally Championship?
That's a really great point, Kobe. It could be a distraction for him as he's thinking about open wheel racing. The big key is this: we're going to have a couple of weeks until we get to Saudi Arabia for this last race. I think as long as he still stays disciplined, preparing for his next career, open wheels, but then still goes out there and puts in the effort for this next race, he could be in contention. With that said, though, he is still quite a bit behind. He really must win after others crash out. So there might be a chance that he could just say, hey, I'm just going to really focus on my next move. I'll do what I can for position myself in a good spot. But he may not have the heart set into another championship. It will look great on paper, two-time champion coming to open wheels, but I don't feel like it'll be that much bigger compared to where he is right now, where he already has that deal. So I don't see him as one of my favorites for Saudi Arabia. Really, I like Sebastian Ogier, because Sebastian Ogier, really, he has no pressure. He just, let's go out there, try to get the win. Again, start off as a part-time season, starts off with the wins, collecting the wins. Then he decides, hey, there's a shot I'm in the championship. I should just go for it. And he's doing that. So I feel Elfyn Evans has the most pressure. Only 3 points. This is going to be a big test for Evans to claim a championship. If he doesn't get it, I think a lot of people will get pointing to Sebastian Ogier is just that great, and Elfyn Evans just cannot handle the pressure. That's what I think is going to happen if he loses the championship. Evans, Ogier, Rovanpera, all of them Toyota drivers. Toyota, I don't think is going to have any skin in the game as to having a preferred driver win the championship. So I think they're all going to have equal equipment. The best equipment is going to come down to what they could get out of their cars, what they could get out of their co-drivers, and how they race the entire Saudi Arabia race weekend. So Sebastian Ogier, Kobe, has to be my potential favorite to claim the championship.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think Sebastian Ogier, it could be quite a story. Imagine, a part-time driver winning the championship in World Rally. It just show you how good he is, and despite him starting, get up there in age, he is still, one of the best, if not the best that we've ever seen of all time in rally and race. I know a lot of people will say Sebastian Loeb as well, but Sebastian Ogier, he is still going strong. And I think if he really wanted to next season, he could go full time, return to full time racing and go out there and win another World Rally Championship. I think he could do this for at least another 5 or 6 years and compete at a very high level, because it seems like he's not slowing down anytime soon. And speaking of people who are slowing down, we got some news that broke earlier today that Tonic, was going to step away and retire from full-time World Rally Championship competition. I know that was a big surprise to many people. I don't think anyone really, saw that coming from Tonic, that he was going to retire. And that means next year we're only going to have one past champion who is scheduled to be racing full-time, and that is Thierry Neuville. And Tonic, on his, coming retirement from full-time racing, he said he just wants to spend more time with his family, Joe. But do you think, is there something about World Rally Championship, where drivers are not sticking around? And I know we've talked about it in the past, like with the World Rally Championship, it's not just, like say NASCAR, IndyCar, F1, where you just show up, on the weekend, like you show up on a Friday, for IndyCar practice and Saturday for qualifying, and then race on Sunday, like you do in IndyCar or NASCAR, where you have a short practice on a Saturday, then qualify and then you race. With World Rally Championship, you basically have to dedicate a whole week in said country to get ready for this rally.
Yeah, I think this is something where for World Rally Championship, they are not exactly in a state where they're going to be thriving. I think they're going to be in a situation where we talked about this bit of identity crisis. Yes, they are the premier rally racing championship in the globe. There are plenty of other, United States, there's some rally competition. There's local rally competitions globally. But WRC, for anyone that's in this discipline, is the top goal. You only have 3 teams in Rally 1. Ford, Hyundai, Toyota. And Tonic has driven for all of them. A lot of people wonder, could he have gotten more championships if he just stayed at Toyota rather than going to Ford M Sport? We know Ford M Sport team, they were hoping this could be the driver that helps us get to that championship caliber, because we're always the 3rd team. That did not work out. And then this year, he's been able to get wins for Hyundai, which, by the way, the defending champion, Thierry Neuville, has yet to win this year. I think for the competition, the drivers, as you said, Kobe, it's not only just the length of time you are around the globe, traveling around. We know there's rumors of a United States round coming. All that time away for family and friends, if you feel like you're not in a situation where things could be really propelling your career to championships, because it has to be demoralizing when Toyota is just this dominant, where Toyota is going to be taking the top 3 position in the standings, and they're the only 3 drivers left in the championship hunt. Do you go another year with Hyundai? I hope for the better. But Thierry Neuville, Adrian Fourmé, if they have better season, they're going to be just as hard to beat. Highly doubt you want to go back to Ford M Sport. I just think this could be a situation where, with the lack of competition, it just feels like, hey, now's a good time to step away, see my family. The competition level is just not there. There's been rumors about Subaru or a 4th manufacturer coming in. That would greatly help World Rally Championship, just because not only the car count in Rally 1, but then that could be something where Tonic might be able to go to as a driver, maybe in a competition director role. You have situations where World Rally Championship is an incredibly long season. Yeah, we're talking less than 20 rounds compared to F1, NASCAR, and others. But the logistics of being away all week, the courses, we're talking so often public street courses. You have to be out there looking at it, getting the notes before the race weekend. One of the toughest calendars when it comes to just the climates they face. You start off with Monte Carlo, the glitz, the glamour, paved tarmac, and then you go to Sweden, cold, temperatures below 0, snowy, snow all over the place, ice. Africa and Kenya, Greece, all around the world, such unique terrains. Now they're going to Saudi Arabia. as much as they love this, it's going to take a toll. And I think this is something maybe World Rally Championship should consider about what can we do to keep our stars around, because the thought that Thierry Neuville will be the only full-time driver on the field that has a championship, because when you look at the past years, Sebastian Ogier, Sebastian Lowe, Kali Rovanpera, and now Autonic, they're all gone. And you're talking about championships that go all the way back to the early 2000s. That's just something. Can you imagine if any other motorsport series, if F1 for some reason, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, all the past champions are like, well, we're retiring, and you have just one or none? That's that's something that's really missing from a sport, because you're missing that he's racing against a former world champion. Thierry Neuville will be in the field, but let's see how the Hyundai works out.
Yeah, it seems like World Rally Championship is going through what Supercars was going through the last few years. Because, Scott McLaughlin, won all those races and championships. Then he left Supercars, went to the IndyCar Series, and look at Shane Van Gisbergen as well. Won all those races and championships and Supercars, left Supercars for NASCAR. And then we were wondering about Supercars' identity crisis, especially, when you saw the likes of, Will Brown, Cam Waters, and, flirting with going to NASCAR, coming over here to race. And then Brock Feeney as well expressing interest in making a start in NASCAR, although it didn't happen. We're wondering, what is Supercars going to do to keep his young stars around? And then within, the last year or so, we've seen, quite a few young drivers emerge, Tobito's stars, Tobito's names who are going to be around for years to come, like Brock Feeney's. You got Matt Payne as well. And a whole bunch of other drivers who are really going to be making a name for themselves in the Supercar series. And with, an Tonic, who has always been around, with him leaving, and then who knows what Ogier is going to do, if he's going to return to full-time or remain part-time. You're just really losing a lot of your big name drivers out there. And so we're going to need to see what happens with this next generation. My hope is that World Rally Championship is going to have exactly what happened with Supercars. Now they have a boom of young talent coming through, and of drivers who will be able to make their name for themselves over the years. And right now, with these really talented drivers walking away, it's going to be hard, to make sense of who's going to be the next big thing in the World Rally Championship. And I hope that this is something that they'll be able to solve over time. And yeah, Joe, it's really nice to see all of the different places that they visit all over the world. It's nice seeing the visuals. Yeah, let's say racing in Greece, obviously, the terrain of Saudi Arabia and some of the other great places that we've seen them, especially Safari Rally Kenya. I really love that one. And then I think is it Rally Finland? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Oh, Sweden. That's the one I'm thinking of with all the snow. Those are my two favorite rallies, Sweden and then the Safari Rally, because of the scenes and all of that is just such an incredible thing. And then you mentioned the talks of coming to the U.S. with a rumor been through the Cherokee National Forest in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Would be really great to see them in 2027 over here stateside. There's a lot of good things that they have going for them, but they need to make it more sustainable to try to keep their drivers around. And I don't know what more the other manufacturers can do to try to keep up with Toyota. It seems like if you want a real chance right now, you have to be on a Toyota. And Toyota can only put out so many seats for full-time drivers. So it's not like World Rally Championship going to become a Toyota spec series, which I'm sure the other drivers would appreciate because they'd at least have a chance. But it's kind of like MotoGP with Ducati right now, dominating mostly everything. And then the other manufacturers, like we saw today, Marco Bezzecchi and the Aprilia, you're able to break through every now and then, but for the most weekends, it's going to be a Ducati winning. And I guess whenever we have a new regulations change in the World Rally Championship, maybe that will help, bring more parity to the sport. And then also maybe take a look at the weekend structure, maybe, try to shorten and condense it, like we've seen NASCAR condense their schedule over the last few years to try to, have people be able to spend more time at home with their families so they don't have to be gone for so long.
Yeah, if they could do something, condense the schedule, or just align it where you have a European leg, most of the drivers are from Europe, that'll go a long way for World Rally Championship. But we'll find out as everything, of course, progresses towards 2026. Meanwhile, 2025, we still have the grid ranking. We had several changes in the top 10. Sebastian Ogier overtook Marc Marquez for second place with his win in Japan. Second place is still not secure, so it could go either way between the two. Lando Norris overtook Oscar Piastri to claim a top 5 position with 3 races remaining, while Max Verstappen is up 2 places today to take 8th ahead of Denny Hamlin and Collier Rivera. Taking a look at the remainder of the grid ranking overall, we got 4 race weekends left. You only have Formula One, MotoGP, which is going to be wrapping up, and then the Supercar Series. Supercar Series, of course, having their finals, similar to the playoff system, elimination style format. It's going to be an interesting few race weekends with next weekend, MotoGP and the Supercar Series. And then after that, we'll be down to the final 3 weeks of the grid ranking. 36 weeks in the grid ranking total. So the old record of Max Verstappen leading every race weekend in the grid ranking from 2023 with 35 race weekends, Alex Palou will break that record with 36 weeks leading the grid ranking. Actually led from the start, clinch the championship, and will have it all done in a few weeks' time. So still a lot going on with the grid ranking.
Yeah, for sure. And unfortunately, we're almost out of time for today. So let's start with our great one shining moment from this racing weekend. Whether you're watching here live or on replay, let us know what's the one thing that you really like. Whether it was from the Formula One at Interlagos in Brazil, MotoGP at Portimao, World Rally Championship in Rally Japan. And Joe, I'll let you go first. What's your one shining moment?
My shining moment is going to come from the F1 race, and it's going to go to the driver that got second place, Kimi Antonelli. 19-year-old rookie. Started off the season, okay, looking decent, got a podium. Then he goes out there and starts struggling, having some bad races. At one point, Jack Villeneuve made a comment that if you can't handle the heat, you got to get out. The last few race weekends, he has really started to shine. And this was, I think, a big race moment where he could confidently say, I raced my best all year long. Second on the grid. So got there, missing out on the pole. Kept it clean, even when Oscar Piastri made the contact. That could have been easily a moment that could rattle him, make him make mistakes, push the issue. He did not. Instead, he ran his own race, knew he had the car to get second place, and then when Max Verstappen was closing in on him, raced smart, did not make a mistake, did not allow Max Verstappen to gain a position on him. When they were coming down to start the final lap, you could see as they were entering that final corner before they hit on the gas, the accelerator, to go to the straightaway, you just see Kimi Antonelli come out of the corner perfectly. And that's where Max Verstappen, you look at the replay, slid a little bit. And that was a key moment where I feel like he has second place wrapped up. And he just handled it great to go out there, get the position, best finish. And I think really start making people feel like, okay, let's see what he could do next year in this team. They might have a star on their hand. I think that's going to really feel good for the Mercedes team. So Kimi Antonelli, my shining moment.
And my shining moments actually come from one of our grid endurance performance index races that happened over the weekend. Matt White will tell you more about that on Wednesday at Grid Tonight, 5:30 p.m. Eastern time when we get started. And I got to give a call to Toyota Gazoo Racing in the World Endurance Championship Hypercar class. Winning the 8 hours of Bahrain, they didn't just win, the race. They dominated and finished 1-2 with both of their cars. Considering the type of year Toyota Gazoo Racers had in the World Endurance Championship, to win in the way that they did, it was just spectacular because entering the season finale at Bahrain, Toyota had not finished on the podium a single time this year, one of their worst seasons in the World Endurance Championship that I can remember personally. And then we saw Kamui Kobayashi, Nick DeFries, Mike Conway go out there and win the race, and then finishing right behind them in the sister car, you have Brendan Hartley, Ryo Hirakawa, and Sebastian Buemi, to take the second spot on the podium. And it just shows, that in endurance racing, never give up. I know Toyota's been the gold standard of that hypercar class for the longest time. And even back when the class was called LMP1. And it has to be a tough year on them, from a team morale point of view, because they're used to, people chasing them. They're not used to, being mid-packing towards the back, not even having a chance. This was the first time all year where it looked like they completely had the rest of their competitors where they wanted them, and they were able to pull away and dominate it. No one could touch either of the two Toyotas in this race. So that's why I'm giving them my shining moment for a job well done to close out the year. It was, if you look at where they finished in the standings, not really disappointing, but anytime you can win and end the year like they did, there's a lot of momentum to build in the 2026. And shortly after winning the race, they announced that they were bringing the exact same driver lineup back next year when Toyota is going to have a brand new hypercar that hopefully will keep up with the rest of the competition, since the one that they have right now is kind of outdated as the other hypercar manufacturers continue to update their cars, to improve them and, continue to make them faster. And we thought Toyota was going to be making a lot of changes to its lineup, given how badly they've struggled this year, but they've decided to run it back. And it just shows that Toyota believe the issue is the car, not the drivers.
Another great shining moment. And of course, as you mentioned, Wednesday, Grid Tonight. But tomorrow, final episode of Grid Encore. Ben, Brandon, and a lot of special guests will be on the air. So be sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon so you don't miss this big program tomorrow. Cross social media at Grid Network TV and gridnetworktv.com. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Colin Deschelle, Mark Rom, David Matthew, and Crystal for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. Link in the video description to our Patreon page. Get your name on the leaderboard as we prepare for 2026 and close out 2025. Grid Encore tomorrow, Grid Tonight on Wednesday, and then we'll be recapping the entire race weekend next week right here on YouTube. For Kobe, I'm Joe. Thank you for watching today's program. We'll see you next time.